this is what we're going to make. So the first thing I'm going to do is just take you through the kit and everything that's in there. You have 4 different colours of fleece. So you've got your grey, you've got white, you've got the black and the orange. So you can see all of those colours. There you go. Just lean in, Paul, lean in. You can see all of the colours within him there. You're also going to get your, it's a very big bag for 2 little eyes, but you've got your safety eyes in there as well. So that's all included. We just pop them out and put them on the orange bit. You see them better. There we go. You get another little bag in there, and that will have your needle and thread in. You're also going to get your easy thread needle in there, and we'll go through what this does in just a second, because this allows you to either thread through the bottom hole as a normal needle, or you can actually ping your thread into that top hole. And then the last item that is in the box is your instructions. So you've got both a template. Oh, Paul! Paul! Let me just put this needle down before I lose it. So you're going to get your template. So that's a A3 piece with all the bits you need on there. And you're also going to get your penguin instructions as well. And that's lots of pictures, step by step, of what we're going to do. So let's start at the beginning. First of all, let me just tidy up a bit. We need to cut out our template pieces. So fabric to one side. Paul, just shuffle across. There you go. Just stay there. There, splendid. And we're going to cut out, you need to cut out everything. So let me grab my scissors. Now, we definitely advise you have 2 pairs of scissors for this. 1 pair of scissors, which is going to be your paper scissors, and 1 which is going to be your fabric scissors. You ideally don't want to use the same pair for both, because the paper does blunt the scissor eventually. So if you notice, I'm going round the outer of the black lines.
Hayley, just to check, these are the paper scissors.
They're your paper scissors, yes.
Oh, thank goodness.
No problem. You're going around the outside line, because you've got, you notice that each of the template pieces have got 2 lines on. Your outer line is where you're going to cut your fabric to. That's your cut line. And then your inner line is going to be where you're going to stitch to. So you need to be cutting this as accurately as you can. Oh, Paul! You need to be as accurate as you can. But it doesn't matter if you're a little bit over. I would definitely say over rather than under on these pieces. So we still ideally want to be cutting so you can see that back line, that black line on there. So that's our first one out. And I'm now going to cut the wings and the beak. Paul, you're going to have to shuffle along. You're being a bit of a pest, mate. Stay there, out the road. So we need the beak and one of the wings as well. So we'll just clip those out. Oh, and I need the feet. So I'm just going to rough cut these first of all, and then we'll go ahead and cut all of these out. Now you'll notice the feet, if I just shuffle these out the way, the feet has only got 1 line on it. So which way around? Let's go this way around. So we're right way up. That's only got 1 line on. Because if I show you the feet on Paul as well, so there's the template, there's Paul's little feet. Now these are just the exact size that they need to be. And that's because the material that we're working with, fleece, doesn't fray, so it's incredibly forgiving. Okay. And you can cut out pieces that are the exact shape and size you need, and they're not going to go anywhere, they're not going to move. So that's a slightly different technique we're going to use for the feet. So that just needs to be cut out to the single black line that's on there. And if you're a bit nervous, I would say cut it out, cut the easy bits out first, and then come back and snip those toes in as a little V shape. So all the way around the edge. And then when we come to the toes, we can just take it round and into the middle. And then, because that's the same shaped curve, we'll do that one at the same time. And then come back the other way and take those little bits out of the middle. There's one out. And there is the second one out. And so, I have 1 body piece. I have 1 of the wings, I have 1 beak, and I have 1 foot. That's what we're going to start off with.
Okay, lovely.
So the next step is to grab the grey. So I know people might be still cutting out. I'm just going to kind of show you what I mean about certain elements of the fabric that we need to look out for. So let me just grab the grey into here. So you have a big strip of grey fabric, and as you can see, you've got plenty of space on there. Now the fleece does have a bit of what we call a nap to it, so it will kind of flow more nicely in one direction than the other.
Okay.
This particular one that we've put in, it really won't matter for this, because this one's a polar fleece, and it's kind of tufted up rather than directional. So this one we've given you the kind of easiest material possible to start with. So in the grey, we are going to have to cut out 2 of these body pieces and 4 of the wings. And now you can see there, you've got absolutely kind of, see, it doesn't quite fit on, but we've got tons of fabric there. We've got plenty. You don't need to worry about being too careful with these. Now actually, we're going to need 4 wings, remember, because if I have a look at Paul very quickly, you've got this side, which will be equivalent to that one.
Yeah.
That side, which will be equivalent to the other one that we still haven't cut out yet.
Yeah.
And then each of these wings is made up from 2 pieces of the fleece as well. So we need to cut out 2 of these and 4 of these. So we're going to pop that one on there, and then I can have 2 of my wings there, and then my other wing template. Because you'll notice, if I quickly cut this other wing template out, you'll notice 2 go in one direction and 2 go in the other.
Of course.
We've put 2 templates in there just to remind you, but because it's actually going to be exactly the same, you can get away with cutting 4 out just of 1, because if I take that and pop that on there as well, and I just compare it to Paul, you can see it's correct if it's that way, and then flip him over and correct if it's that way, and if I flip him over, it's that equivalent. So it's the same shape. So you don't need to worry about it. It will fit. So don't worry about the wings, just do 2 pairs. So if you have a look there, there's plenty of space around it. If you're quite stingy with your cutting, you might even get 2. We're going to go ahead and chop these out.
Okay.
So you can pin these on. If you've got a little bit of double-sided tape, then you can put a little bit of double-sided tape on the back just to hold it in place. I've got a couple of pins handy, so I'm just going to whack those on. So once that's pinned in place, and you put as many or as few pins in as you are happy with, and then you can go ahead and start to cut your fabric. But I would advise, if it is your first time out, cut everything out, pin everything on to make sure that everything fits. Now you will notice I've pinned these onto the back of the fabric. You can't see a huge difference here, but one side is fluffier than the other. And because I'm going to draw on this back side of the fabric, that's why I've picked the non-fluffy side to work with. You can have it either way out, but ideally you want everything to be pinned on the same side. So if you're doing the way that I'm doing at the minute, where I've got it folded over, you can just cut through both layers at the same time, and it'll give you 2 opposite sides that are both fluffy. If you want to do it where you lay everything out individually on the whole piece, then you can do that as well. It's entirely up to you.
Right,
so you'd lay one out this way, and then you cut the other one out that was the opposite way. And if you're pretty stingy with your chopping, as we said, you might just get 2. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this out now.
Okay.
And the way we're going to do that is just hold it onto the, obviously it's pinned, but what you want to make sure you don't do is stretch the fabric too far or kind of snip too far in past the line that you've already got. And to be honest, what I would tend to do is maybe cut it as a lot. Oh, Paul, he's at it again. Get out of it.
He's got happy feet. He wants to dance.
He just wants to join in. Just enthusiastic, that's all. So I'm just going to do a rough cut on it, because then I'm not struggling with that whole bit of fabric. And once I've done my rough cut, then I'm going to come back in. And again, I could probably do with another pin there. You see how that's flopping down? Let me just grab another pin and pop another one in there. And see how that's much kind of more stable now, and that's not flopping down anymore. So we're going to cut all the way around. You don't need to be too precious about this, and if you are going to make any allowances, I would say leave a little bit extra rather than not enough.
Okay.
Let's work our way all the way around and cut these out. So your homework, or part of your homework, is to cut out all of the other bits that we don't use tonight. So we're just doing this one body bit as an example, but all the other bits that we haven't done tonight, you're going to need to chop out. So that is your kind of essentially your guide to starting to cut patterns out with fabric. Okay, so we're going to leave that pinned onto there for now, because then I'll know what that is. And also it tells me, you know, that which side I've got, so I don't get them mixed up and accidentally cut the same one twice. Okay, so I'm going to leave that pinned onto there, and we're going to move on and cut the wings out. So with these ones, it says wing cut 2 from grey fleece. So obviously the first way round we had it, where we had it folded over, you could do those as a pair. So you could put a pair like that, and then do another pair.
Yeah.
If you want to do it all separately, then what I suggest you do is put it on, cut one out, put the other one on, cut that out, and then another one and another one. But try and keep them all running in the same direction. This is good practice if you are using a fabric that has a nap. What a nap is, it's a directional fabric. So it'll be something like a fur that has a direction to it. So you brush it one way and it looks right, and you brush it the other way and it all sticks up.
Velvet has a nap, doesn't it?
Exactly, like velvet. So if you are doing this with a fabric that has a nap, so maybe you want to make it again in another fabric, what I advise you do is just mark a little arrow on, like that, in the direction that you want your nap to go, because that means you don't really want to be cutting it that way or cutting it upside down, because you want it to follow the same nap. We've given you an incredibly forgiving fabric, so that's not something you need to worry about right now, and that means that you can do kind of sneaky things like that, and really make the most of your fabric, because the fleece isn't really directional. You're not going to, do you know what, let's do it. Let's have it. The fleece isn't really directional, so you're not going to kind of really gain anything by keeping it. Oh, that's the wrong scissors. It's my paper scissors.
Do you know, I reckon I could get a second pawl out of my fabric. I do, yeah.
Pair of pawls. That's what everybody wants. Pair of pawls. Oh, dear. Okay, so we want 4 of these. So we are going to do this real time, and that will allow anybody who's, you know, still cutting anything to catch up a little bit as well. So we're going to cut all 4 of these out. So it says we need 2 of one side. So the first 2 I'll do as it says and cut them individually, and the second 2 I'll do it as a double layer so you can see the difference. And you do need a good sharp pair of scissors for this. So that's our first one, and then that's our second one. So again, direction doesn't really matter on this. It's just a case of getting the very most out of the fabric that you can. I'm going to put it that way. And grab another pin. This one's been near my iron. It's flat on one side. So many pins and seam rippers that have been near the iron and are flat on one side. So if you find it easier to do a rough cut and then trim off, fine. If you want to kind of work with it as it is, then that's also fine. And I would definitely suggest as many pins as you feel are going to comfortably hold the piece that you're working on.
Lovely.
So I have unpinned both of those. Now, what we now need to get onto there, because all I need for the minute from you is two wings. That's all I need. Now, I'm going to come back to this template and I'm going to cut away that seam allowance.
Okay.
So I'm going to do it carefully so I can always stick it back on if I want to make a second one. So we're going to just cut out the wing itself now. And don't worry if they're looking a bit kind of wobbly and wonky at the minute. That's fine. We've still got the stitching to put in, and these are just seam allowances, so you don't need to worry about that at all. So I'm going to cut both of these out so we can pop them both on and do them at the same time. We can start to stitch the wing together. So you've cut out your fabric pieces. When you've cut your fabric pieces, you've cut them to that outer line that was on the template. We've come back in, we've cut away the seam allowance, so now we've got inner templates. Now this inner template is your stitch line. So we're now lining both of these back up with the pieces of fabric we've cut out, and we're just going to draw around those. Any kind of pen, it really doesn't matter. It's not going to go through the fleece, and it's not going to mark the front of your design. So don't need to worry about that at all. So that's where we should be. Do you know what we haven't done? We haven't showed you threading the special needle. I threaded one anyway. So I'm going to put it in this little pin cushion just so I can try and hold it still for you. Ready? And just pull down. Pop. And that's it. In you go. Done. So these are really, really handy, and that's why we put these in the kit, because they are really handy for beginners, or if you're just not that good at threading needles. Okay, let's go. So round the finger a couple of times.
Okay.
And then you're just going to roll it off your finger towards you. And then all I'm going to do, I'll do it with this fingernail so hopefully you can see. And then slide it up. And then that creates, it's not pretty, but it's going to do the job.
Ah.
You're not going to see it because it's going to be inside.
Yeah.
So it doesn't have to be pretty. So we are going to take these two pieces that we've got and we're going to put them face to face. Now on your templates, you've got a couple of letters. And with your letters, that's where you need to sew from. You need to sew from G all the way around to H. So obviously we don't need to sew across the top because we're going to use that in a minute. If you have a look at Paul, we don't need to sew that top bit because one, we need that open to turn it right side out.
Yeah.
And two, it's going to get caught up when we attach the head.
Got you.
So we don't need to worry about that bit at all. So what I'm doing here is the same principle that you're going to use for your beak as well. The beak you're going to cut out in orange fleece. And you're going to cut two of those and you're going to do exactly this same principle. You're going to do identical. So, and you're going from A to B, you're going around the round bit. You don't need to worry about the bit in the middle because the bit in the middle will actually get kind of attached to the face. So, and you need a little bit again to turn it right side out. So I'll get round the curve at the bottom. So we've been doing kind of straightish lines at the minute. When we're coming to these curves, then we need to just be a little bit more mindful that we do check on the back to make sure that we're still lined up, because that's when it could move. Now you notice I haven't put any pins in this to hold it together because the fleece is actually quite grippy.
Yeah, it
and
is,
it
isn't
kind of holds to itself, so you don't need to worry about having pins or anything in it. And especially if you are having a younger person do this, then you don't need to have them with pins if you don't want them with pins. Right, so let's get round this corner, and then I reckon when I get to about here, I'll have run out of thread, and then we can show you how to tie off and how to add a new bit, because I want to get round at least one wing tonight so we can turn it right side out. And then you're going to use exactly that same principle for both of your wings and your beak. And you need to cut your little feet out as well, because that's our kind of stopping point for today, is to get all of those elements done, because then when we do the construction next week, it can be pretty quick. So there's only one piece that needs to be cut out from the white, so that there's more than enough room on there to cut that out. And there's one piece that needs to be cut out from the black as well. So that's why we've concentrated on the orange and the grey, because those other bits are pretty straightforward. Well, I'm not doing badly for not looking that much. Okay, around the front. So when you're going forward, remember, you're going forward when the thread's on the back. So you're going forward on the back and coming up. And then when you're coming back down, you're going to come back on yourself to come back down. Let me just open this out and let me show you, even though we've got a coloured thread in there, how forgiving that fleece is, because you can, if I give it a good pull, you might be able to see a couple of stitches. Oh, there you go, there's a couple there.
Yeah, but you've really got to stretch that open, haven't you?
I mean, you've got to be proper looking for them. And also you've got a more coordinating thread than this. You've got a white, which you won't see at all, rather than bright green, which is what we're stitching in. So I'm going to just turn that round, because obviously it's easier to stitch kind of towards you than it is, and keep moving it round to get to whatever suits you better. And then we're going to go back down, and you can see now I'm starting to run out of thread. Now, because we're doing double thread, and I think if you are going to put a bit of tension on, double thread is a good idea. If you are going to be a bit, because you can see I can really give that a good pull and tighten all these stitches right up. If you are going to do it with single thread, then just make sure you don't you need to pull tight to close those 2 layers of fleece together, but don't pull so tight that you're going to keep snapping it. Or if you do keep snapping it, then just change to a double thread if you find that easier. Okay, so I've got about 2 more stitches. Right, now, what I need to keep an eye on, I've got quite a small needle here, so it's not so bad, but when you're starting to run out of thread, make sure you've got at least 2 lengths of your needle left when you're going to stop. So I'm going to stop here, so I'm going to go back down for the stitch there, and I'm going to come back up where that stitch first started. There we go, and then on the stitch on the front, because that's the smaller, tighter stitch, I'm going to go under the stitch, but I'm also going to grab a little bit of the fleece as well. Not enough so it goes through to the front. Okay. Just a little tiny bit. And I'm going to pull that through and then go through the loop that I've left and pull that down. You see that there? If I just hold it still. And then you'll be able to pull that tight, and then you'll be able to get a nice little tight knot in it,
isn't it?
Now, at that point, I wouldn't cut that off right at the knot. I would probably do the same thing a second time, just to make sure it's nice and secure. So we'll go back under again, and then we'll come back through that knot. So I've got effectively a double knot in there, but this is going to be hidden on the inside. So what I'll do is just stitch it through my seam allowance bit, not through both layers, just through one layer, and pull that through. So if that knot does come undone, I've still got a little bit of thread in there that'll secure it. So that's how I'm going to cut it off. Leave it like that. And now I'll rethread my needle, and then we'll come and finish this last bit off and get it turned right side out. So I'm just about to restart again, so I'm going to show you that kind of scruffy knot one more time. So my fingers are really blue now because of that pen. So I'm going to wrap that round, and then I'm going to rub my fingers together so it slides off the end of my finger. And if I just put that fingernail there, hopefully you'll be able to see when I pull that through and stop it against my fingernail, that's what creates, it's not a pretty knot, but it is very, very effective.
Yeah.
And it's a nice, quick and easy way to do it.
There it is.
Okay,
very good.
So let's go again. So to start this off again, I would actually go back half a stitch from where I was, just to make sure that that bit is really, really secure. And, you know, there's nothing worse than finishing something and then having a knot come out, and you've got a bit that's kind of unpicked itself. So I've gone back half a stitch, and then now we've got that bit there held with our original bit that we finished off, and we've got it held a second time with this piece that I'm now stitching in now. So we've got double bubble on that one. And I'm going to quickly whip around the rest of this. So when you travel forward, there's threads on the back, and when you travel back, the threads on the top, and just all the way around to complete the wing. And I've got a few more stitches, and then the next step is to turn this right side out. Now, normally, when we would stitch in a cotton and we would turn out things like curves, we would snip into them to allow the fabric to move. Now, the fleece is way more forgiving than the cotton, so you don't actually... Are you finished yours? Oh, she's so speedy.
I finished the whole pole.
Have you?
Not just the wing. No, I've only done the wing. I've done one wing. But actually, Hayley, the shaping is wonderful. So the pattern pieces are just perfect for the job, obviously.
Yes, exactly the right size and shape. And also this way, you've got a little bit of filling in the wing from the bits that are left over.
Yeah.
You really don't want to cut this too close, because what you risk doing if you do that is kind of, you know, it unraveling itself, and you really don't want to do that. I would always leave a little bit more seam allowance than you want, especially on your kind of first time out. When you get more experience, you'll be able to, you know, trim it off a little bit more and tidy things up. But for now, we're just going to leave the lot.
There's something quite satisfying about hand stitching, I think.
3 more stitches. Yeah, there is. And the thing is, if you do so, it's much slower, which means that if something's going wrong, you can stop it before it goes too far wrong. So, I mean, for example, that's not, but I've done quite well there. I'm quite proud of myself for not really looking. But if I was travelling off too far, it would only be 1, maybe 2 stitches before I could catch it. And also, you can easily unpick it. You can so easily go back a couple of stitches and unpick it. So, for example, if I did want to unpick, say I came through here and I thought, oh, well, that's not quite right. I'm a little bit off on the back, especially if you've double threaded it. I'm just going to get this other needle so you can see me pull this through. If you pull it back, but when you get to the point where the needle's going to come through, if you just make sure that that needle is straight, I don't know if you can see that, it's not wonking off to the side like that, but dead straight, you should be able to just give a little wiggle. And you see it's coming through the first one. And then, again, straighten it up, give it a little wiggle. You should be able to pull it back through. Oh, I can see what it's done. It's gone back through the wrong hole. So you've got to keep it nice and straight and let it follow that thread back through. Oh. So you can unpick. You don't need to worry if you've gone a little bit off. You can unpick it and recover it. So we've stitched this one nice and slowly so everybody gets to see exactly the stitch we're using. And we're going to tie this off again at this top end. So you see that one more time. And I'm going to go through another stitch there, come onto the top, grab a little bit of the fleece and that last stitch, and then I'm going to pull it through to leave a loop. Just pop that up onto the top, leave a little loop, then we're going to come through the loop and pull it tight to create a knot. And then do the second time, repeat exactly the same thing a second time, create a knot, pull it through, and then I'm going to stitch it into that seam allowance to get the remainder of the thread out of the way, and then trim that off. Oh, paper scissors. So from there, that's our first wing complete. Now, yes, it might not be the straightest, but fleece is incredibly forgiving. So when you turn it right side out, and to do that, I'm just putting a couple of fingers inside and pushing through. And then once I've got it through, now it's very tempting to use the scissors to poke that out. I wouldn't do that because you may, cut your threads in your seams that you've just done. So a little bit of patience and maybe a pen with a nib in. Or chopsticks are great for this.
Yeah, something rounded rather than
something
sharp.
with a roundy bottom. There you go. And that is your first little Paul wing underway. And it's nice to have him there so you can kind of see directly where it is that you're going. So your homework is second wing. So exactly the same as we've done now. We need a second one of those. I need you to cut the rest of your pieces out. So we've got obviously one side body that we've already done. We need the other side body from the grey. We need the other wing out. And then we need, out of the white, you're going to cut the great big long piece. This big long piece here. That's going to be what creates your face and your tummy. There's your other grey side body piece. And this, what looks like a really strange shape here, you're going to cut that from your black. As you can see, we've given you plenty to do exactly what you need. And that's going to be the head. And then the last bit we need to do is the orange. And that's going to be the beak and the feet. So the beak, that works exactly the same way as the wings. So you're going to pop that on there, cut one out, turn it over, and cut a second one out. Just put it in the middle. And the reason, it is a symmetrical shape, so you can get away with just cutting two right way up, but generally with patterns it's best practice to flip it over. And this will actually have the other way up because you want to work on the back. Yeah. And if you can see on that one, it's incredibly hard to see because it's not that clear on camera, but one side is fluffier than the other. Work on the non-fluffy side. and then you'll be absolutely fine. So you want 2 of those out, and you want 2 of these out. So you can see we've been very, very generous with your orange fleece. And that's because sometimes if you've cut these out and you're not quite happy with them, at least there's enough to cut a dozen pairs out, so you'll be absolutely fine. So with these pieces, where we're cutting them to that exact size and shape, let me just pop a pin in here and we'll just do this one. Ooh, there we go, it's in. So, get the big scissors. We're gonna, again, I tend to do a rough cut first, just to make my life a little bit easier so I'm not struggling with all that extra fabric. And these I would cut as best you can with the template, which I've got quite chunky scissors here, so I'm not going to be able to get those nice little curves in. So I'll show you what I'm going to do. I'm going to cut it kind of roughly with the template. Now I wouldn't draw this one on, and the reason I wouldn't draw this one on is because it's going to be visible on the outside. So if you had those lines on there, let me just grab Paul so I can show you his feet. Actually, I've left his feet pinned in so I can show you. It would actually be visible on the outside, so you'd be able to see where you'd drawn on.
Okay,
so
yeah.
That's the reason I haven't done that. Now I will take this off here, and you can see that at the minute is looking a little bit kind of clunky. So I would go back in and just tidy it up a little bit. And then what you can do is, if you've struggled with the paper template on these smaller bits, what you can actually do is use the bit you've just cut. So that's going to be right side up. I want the opposite one, so I'm going to flip it over and pop that on there. And because this will kind of grip to your fleece, it actually provides you with a much more flexible template. So it's quite nice to use the actual foot you've just cut as your template to cut your next one.
That makes sense.
And because it's grippy and it's flexible, you might find you have a little bit of an easier time with that. So you need to cut all of the pieces out. So every single piece. That's your white tummy and face piece, your black face head piece. You need 2 of your little feet. You need both sides of your body. And you need to do the other set of wings. Now for sewing, all we need to do is have the 2 wings finished and the beak finished. So that's those 2 bits sewn together exactly the same way as we've just shown you the beak. So those 2 sides, where's my beak piece? There you go. 2 pieces out of the orange and then sewn from B, from A, all the way around to B, and then turned right side out. And again, I would leave all of that extra in, because what it does is it adds a bit of bulk to the beak and just creates a little bit of dimension to it and a little bit of stiffness. So it's really good to leave the extra in there. Now you might have to trim, if it's too bulky and too kind of open, you might need to trim off a little bit right on the end of the beak there, but that is kind of personal preference. So see how you feel. And if you want to take a little bit off there, you can. Just don't go too close to those stitch lines, because we don't want to take those out.